Coming up next week, the Big Tens are going to be happening. This is obviously a big tournament if you're a fan of the Big Ten, but then also if you're just a general fan of college wrestling, because whoever wins these tournaments is going to have a big advantage in the seeding. So we'll start with 125, and I'm going to be using the Flow Wrestling rankings for the Big Ten. It's worth noting that the most recent version is from February 19th. There were some meets after them, but I don't know if there were any major in-conference results there that would have an effect on these. So I'm going to go off of the assumption that, one, these are going to be the rankings that we'll be seeing in the Big Tens. They haven't released the brackets yet, so I don't actually know whether or not that's going to be the case. And then I'm going to be going off of the assumption that it'll go the 1 and 2 will get first round buys, 3 and 14, 4 and 13, and so on. Those will be the seedings in the rounds before then. So if we're looking at 125, just down the list, as far as guys who are ranked 9 through 14 who have a chance of breaking into the top 8 and breaking into the round of 8, I think there's an opportunity for Malik Heinzelman to knock off Schroeder. Elijah Oliver versus Zeke Moisey could be an interesting match just because Moisey's a bit inconsistent. Sometimes he's extremely high level. Obviously, he's been a All-American with West Virginia, but there have been other times when he's lost matches that you can't see him losing. So in this case, I think he is probably going to win in his first round, and he'll get past Elijah Oliver. As far as Cray, Rotondo, Schnupp, and Metzler go, I don't think any of those guys are going to score upsets in the first round. So then if you're looking at the second round, Sebastian Rivera at number 1 is probably going to face off against Schroeder or Heinzelman. I think either way, Rivera is going to have the big edge there and is probably going to score some bonus points. Lee would likely get Moisey or Oliver. Lee's beaten both of those guys. Moisey was able to take him down in their meet, but this was a meet that was fairly recently, and Lee was fairly down in that match despite getting taken down early. I think the same will happen here. I think he'll get through Moisey fairly easily. Between Russell and Matten, could be a close match, but I think Russell's going to have the edge there. Russell's just looked really, really good this year. And with Foley and Petrowski, I think Foley's going to have the edge there, which would then put us in a spot where we got the top 4 seeds in the final 4 spots, or in the semis. Rivera versus Foley. Rivera dominated Foley before. I would see him doing the same again, so I think Rivera's going to find his way into the finals. And then between Lee and Russell, first time they went against each other, Lee actually never shot against Russell. The one takedown he got was off of a counter shot, so he scored 2 points there, was able to keep him down the whole time because Russell was more interested in just not getting turned than getting up. So he was able to get another point for riding time and another point for an escape, so it was a 4-0 win. If Lee doesn't shoot in this match, that could be trouble for him. It's interesting that in the previous match, Russell didn't really make a whole lot of effort to get back up once he got taken down. It was more just not getting turned. If he takes that same approach, that could be trouble for him too. So I think Lee's going to get another close win here, which sets up the Lee versus Rivera rematch that we've all been waiting to see. And as far as how that goes, I would have to, as hard as it is to pick against Spencer Lee, especially since he beat Rivera both times last year, he just hasn't looked the same this year. That match against Piccinini is kind of stuck in my mind. Now, obviously, that'll be a couple weeks from the time that between then and when he would face Rivera in the finals of Big Tens, but I just don't see it going a whole lot better for him. I think Rivera is going to win this match. I don't think Rivera is going to score bonus points on Lee. I don't think Rivera is going to pin Lee, but I do see Rivera getting another win here, and Lee having to take the next week and a half after that to go back to the drawing boards before NCAA's and trying to get everything right before the big tournament and his chance to defend his title. Then we go to 33. This is the deepest weight class in the country. And the top 6 seeds here is just insane to have in a conference tournament. So you got Mitric at 1, DeSanto at 2, Soriano at 3, Lezak 4, RBY 5, Pletcher 6. And there's kind of a big drop off from there. Ben Thornton's good, but I don't think he's going to break into the top 6. I really don't think any of these guys are going to break into the top 6. So as far as how the first round matchups would go, you'd have Mitric versus either Tutolo or Duncan. I think Duncan has a good chance to step in there and actually earn a spot, but I don't see him given Mitric any trouble. DeSanto would be facing a guy like Thornton or Valdivas. Dominant wins in both of those matches for him. So I would figure that he'd be able to get to the semifinals. Soriano versus Pletcher would be a really interesting match. But I think Soriano gets the edge there. It's not going to be bonus points by any means, but I think Soriano would be able to get the win there. It wouldn't shock me if Pletcher pulled the upset there, but I think Soriano's going to have the edge. And then Lezak RBY is interesting just because Lezak's one of those guys who he'll win matches you don't expect him to, and obviously he got to the finals in NCAA's at 125 a couple of years ago. But then during the season, he won't look as good. So this is getting to be late in the season. This is starting to get into the time when he excels. But with RBY, it's going to be a tough test. I think in the end, you have to go with what you know. And I know Lezak is a guy who can perform at this time of year. RBY did have that knee injury. He has come back since then, but I don't know that you could say he's wrestling at 100%. So I'd have to give the edge to Lezak. So that leaves your top 4 seeds at 133 in the semis, though I think there is a shot that Pletcher sneaks in there. But assuming that he doesn't, assuming that Soriano gets through, that means you have Soriano DeSanto in a rematch of a match where it was one takedown each. But the edge for DeSanto ended up being that there were a couple locked hands calls when Soriano was trying to hold DeSanto down. I don't think that's going to happen again. So as good as DeSanto's looked this year, and he's looked a lot better than he did last year from what I've seen, I think this is going to be an extremely close match. And I think Soriano is actually going to edge him out and get revenge. Not to say that if they meet again in the NCAAs, it'll go that way again, but I think this chapter is going to go to Soriano. And then between Micic and Lizak, you just have to go with Micic. Micic has been on fire. So then you have a Micic versus Soriano rematch. Micic defeated Soriano in their match in the duel. Now, it is worth noting that Soriano got in on Micic's legs more often than Micic got in on Soriano's legs. But the big difference there was that when Micic got in, he was able to finish. When Soriano got in, he wasn't. But the fact that Soriano was able to get in a lot more often tells me that if he's able to make a couple small adjustments here and there to be able to get his finishes, he may be able to edge this one out. So I'm actually going to pick him to beat Steven Micic, pull off the upset here, and win at 133 at the NCAA or at Big Tens, which is just going to make seeding a giant mess. But why the heck not? At 141, they got Nick Lee at number 1, McKenna 2, Carr 3, Storr 4, Moran 5, McKee 6. And you got a bit of a drop off from there with Red, Murin, Lipari, Limix, and the rest of them. So as far as how I see this going, there's potential for upsets. Murin hasn't looked great of late, but I think he is going to be able to get past the kid from Rutgers, assuming he's the one who's in here and not Turk. Then Chad Red versus Limix, that could be an interesting match as well, but I think I'll give the edge to Red. So if you're going top 8 seeds going into the quarters, Lee versus Murin, I could see Lee winning that one with bonus points potentially. McKenna versus Red, I'd give the edge to McKenna. Carr versus McKee, tough match, but I think the edge probably has to go to Carr there just slightly. And then with Storr and Moran, I don't know if Moran's dealing with an injury right now because he wasn't in the Iowa meet. If that's the case, then you probably have to give Storr a little bit of an edge there. So then at that point, we'll be going top 4 seeds to go to the semis. Nothing creative there, but that's just how I see it going. Lee versus Storr, you'd have to give the edge to Lee. McKenna versus Carr could be a very tight match. I could see Carr getting the win there, but I think McKenna has just had the edge head-to-head between those two. Carr has had the edge head-to-head with Nick Lee, but when Nick Lee went down to Illinois for the meet, Carr was not wrestling in that meet. Word was that he was legitimately sick, but either way, not having that win definitely hurts him in the seeding. And so what I would see is I would see Nick Lee getting to the finals. I would see Joey McKenna getting to the finals. I'd see the rematch between the two of them. And I actually think that McKenna would be able to avenge his loss to Nick Lee, and McKenna would win Big Tens here.